Of course, we all know the terrible day that was September 11th, 2001. With 3,000 deaths and a nation frozen with terror, those in charge moved quickly to take control of the situation and to use the tragedy as a way to enact their own will. The two biggest things that come to mind from the attacks are the notorious Department of Homeland Security, the DHS, and the Patriot Act. The DHS is an organization created to, quote-unquote, protect its citizens from several things, but mainly from terrorism. Since its creation, especially with its so-called fusion centers, the DHS has been working under the guise of anti-terror to collect civilian information and violate civil liberties. The Patriot Act was signed into law 1 month after 9/11 happened. Another government tool created to protect citizens from terrorism, but works to support the mass surveillance of its own citizens. Specifically Title II. This had 3 very specific parts that violate the freedoms of American citizens: the sneak and peek warrants, the roving wiretaps, and the accessibility given to FBI agents on information about U.S. citizens and their habits. What is a sneak and peek? The sneak and peek means being able to enter into a suspect's house secretly and look around or gather information and evidence without the knowledge or approval of the person who lives there. Normally, this would be considered breaking and entering, even if enacted by a government force, be it police, FBI agents, or CIA. The Patriot Act gave those organizations the freedom to go into people's houses without the will of the people who live there. A roving wiretap means that you only need a warrant to a person. Unlike traditionally, where you normally need one for each specific piece of tappable technology. Usually, if you had a warrant for someone, you had a warrant for their phone, not for the actual person. With Title II of the Patriot Act, you are now able to follow a person. So every time they get a new phone, you can just wiretap into that phone. I believe it is obvious at this point what my stance is on surveillance. I do not believe that there should be any surveillance of U.S. citizens. I absolutely detest it. So what can you do to prevent more surveillance? What organizations are out there to help us stand up against it? Stop Watching Us was a mass protest that happened in 2013. It came together with a letter to Congress, an open letter to Congress, that had thousands of signatures against the Patriot Act, against mass surveillance of U.S. citizens. More protests like this can be used. Another organization is Stand Against Spying. It's a coalition across the country to stop the NSA from its practices in mass surveillance, and is a very pro-Constitution and pro-civil liberties organization. They also strongly support a transparent government. Perhaps the most famous on my list is the Electronic Frontier Foundation. This is a digital civil rights organization. It's over 25 years old and has been there since the internet has been a thing. They use activism and policy analysis to fight for electronic freedom. The last on my list is the most notorious, WikiLeaks. WikiLeaks is a website where you can upload government documents to, and they show government documents. As you can imagine, by the name leaks, these are documents the government does not want you to be reading, for they should be classified or secret. Now, what WikiLeaks does is force governments to use transparency, because they don't have a choice. The files are up there, the documents are available. Any person around the world can go onto WikiLeaks and download these documents and read what various governments and organizations across the world are doing. These dark secrets that these governments try to hide in their documents can no longer just be swept under the rug. We live in a world that is becoming more and more watched. These organizations, combined with the willingness to stay aware on what is going on and what the government is doing around you, will help us protect ourselves from government surveillance. We must maintain our right to an unsurveyed life without government intervention, because if we do not maintain our own freedom, if we do not fight for our rights, they will take it away.